And we're back with another story time online. This week we are traveling once again across the country. So last week we traveled with Alice Ramsey. This week we are going on a cross-country automobile trip with Jackson and Bud, who I am always in favor of trips that involve dogs or any story that involves a dog. So I'm very excited to redo this story, and we're going to travel across the country once more. This time we're focusing on America's first cross-country automobile trip. So we learned about Alice Ramsey last week, who did an automobile trip cross-country, but she was the first woman. I think we're going to learn here about the first person to travel cross-country, which I think is just a few years before her. Okay, let's get started. Jackson and Bud's Bumpy Ride, America's first cross-country automobile trip. This book is by Elizabeth Kohler-Pentecoff and illustrations by Wes Hargis. And I just love their goggles, which we learned a little bit with Alice Ramsey, that goggles were needed. You can see all the dirt flying up. It helped protect people who were driving from any sort of dust, maybe bugs, dirt that might fly in their face, because as you can see, there's no covering to the car. Your car today, you don't have to worry about that. And here's this trip. San Francisco all the way to New York. Just like what Alice Ramsey did. Jackson and Bud's Bumpy Ride. Except he is going in the opposite direction of Alice. May 19th, 1903, the University Club, San Francisco, California. So it's telling you where this is taking place. Alice Ramsey drove cross country in 1909. So this is just a few years after she drives. I bet $50 no one can ride in a horseless buggy, which is basically a car, across America, says a man. Horatio Jackson sits up straight. Of course it can be done, he thinks. Those new automobiles can do anything. I bet someone can do it, he says. I'll drive from California to New York in less than 3 months. The wager is on. Do we think he can do it? I don't know, we're going to see. As the 20th century began, which is basically the 1900s, or the horses pulling carriages ruled the road. Most people didn't think autos would ever replace them. Jackson wanted to prove that the automobile is the country's future. So here we have carriages, and he's cruising right along. An automobile, an auto, or a car. Jackson hires a mechanic named Crocker, buys a used 1903 Winton auto, and he's on his way. He calls his automobile the Vermont, after the state where he lives. All right, May 23rd, San Francisco, California. Goodbye, good luck, be careful, shouts Jackson's wife, Bertha, who will be returning to Vermont by train. Don't worry, my dear, Jackson pats the car. This trusty machine will get us there with no troubles at all. Toot toot. Let's hope so. Although I think we're in for a little bit of an adventure. Oh no, they spoke too soon. About 15 miles later, bump, 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 kaplooey. Just a momentary delay, says Jackson. He whistles and kicks the other tires. The other wheels are fine. So they have to replace a tire because I think one got busted. The men travel on through California. They drive through purple fields of lupine. In the Sacramento Valley, the auto makes rugged ruts through fruit orchards. Then in the Sierras, the Vermont, or his car, that's named for his car, twists and turns over mountains with steep, narrow roads. The car skids and slips on sandy, rocky ledges. Ooh, scary. And I know if I've driven through mountains and on twisty, windy roads, I get a little scared too. All right, here's another day. June 6th, to the SL Ranch in Oregon. Next day, the long, dangerous journey of the Oregon desert begins. It's about 300 miles of dry, parched land. Will they run out of water? Will they break down? Will they die in the desert? These are all questions they're asking. The engine chokes plugged with desert dirt. Crocker tries to restart it. New batteries don't work. From 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, they wait. The sun blazes. They are hot and thirsty and tired and weak. But wait, a man on horseback appears in the distance. Jackson fires his gun. So what they mean by Jackson firing his gun is you can see he's firing up into the air. He's not firing his gun at him. He's not trying to hurt him. He's trying to use his gun as a way to signal where they are. Sometimes people, if they're stopped on the road, will put out what we call flares, or sort of like little sticks that look almost like candles or flames, to let people know that the car is stopped and they need help. Or they might have something called a flare gun, which will shoot one of these up. So that's basically why he's firing his gun. A cowboy gallops over and lassos the car. He pulls it to a small house. Well, that was very opportunistic. Look at how that worked for them. Crocker works on the auto. The rancher offers his attic for the night. So luckily they're able to be towed to this house and stay over, which I'm sure they need because they seem pretty tired. What's that on the side of the road? A man with a bulldog. The dog's name is Bud. The man sells Bud to Jackson for $15. Jackson gets an unexpected passenger and a good friend. Well, that was really nice of him. Would you want to have a dog or an animal with you on a journey? I think I would. Bud rides in the front and studies the road. Now the car isn't the only thing that's attracting attention. The goggles Bud wears to keep the dust and dirt out of his eyes even make a bulldog look cute. I think bulldogs are cute already, and I think they would make any dog look cute. That night, all three sleep under the car. Bud snuggles up to Jackson's sleeping bag for warmth. June 20th, lost near Green River, Wyoming. Rain. Not just rain, but rain. The storm washes out the road. The Vermont, or the car, sinks into the mud. They cut sagebrush and place it in front of the tires for traction. So basically they're trying to put something underneath the tires. So rather than the tires sort of pushing against the mud and digging deeper, it has something to kind of hold on to and hopefully get the car out of the mud. Using a block and tackle, so putting something under there and connecting a tackle or maybe this sort of rope sort of winch device, they haul the car out of the sticky, oozing muck. 1, 2, 3. Oof. 1, 2, 3. So they're trying to get that car really out of the mud and using whatever they can. And poor Bud is stuck in the mud. Luckily he has his goggles on though, so hopefully he's not getting too wet or too cold. June 21st to Rock Springs, Wyoming. Jackson and Crocker are lost. The air is full of mosquitoes. It's 36 hours since their last meal. Hunger wears at them. Jackson looks at Bud. Crocker looks at Bud. Bud licks them both. Ooh, so you can just see all mosquitoes. I don't know if you ever get bit by a mosquito, but having that many mosquitoes around does not seem fun. Finally, a friendly sheep herder, so someone that takes care of sheep, feeds them and shows them the railroad tracks. They follow the tracks toward Rock Springs. The train brings a circus into Rock Springs. People think the Vermont which is the car, is part of the show. It looks like Bud does not like that clown there. June 23rd, Rawlins, Wyoming. A huge crowd greets the ladies. The huge crowd greets them. Ladies ooh and ah over Bud. Children play fetch with him. They scratch his ears and his back. Bud stretches and croons and hams it up. Men stroke their chins and say what a fine animal he is. Bud agrees. And I think I agree too. July 7th to Nebraska. Lightning flashes, thunder roars. Mud pulls the car into the tops of the wheels. The car is stuck 18 times in one day. Dripping, but ragged and drenched, Sopping, soggy, and soaked, they detour north to find dry roads. And you see here they have a little tarp pulled over a piece of cloth. So remember, early cars don't really have coverings like we do today on our cars. So when it rains, we put on windshield wipers. But they didn't have any of that, so they felt every sort of bit of the weather, really very much more than we would in a car today. July 12th, Omaha, Nebraska. Zach. Jackson rubs his head. Zap! Something stings his face. Ping, ping! What's hitting the car? Crocker swats the air. It's raining. Not water, but flying grasshoppers? They lie so thick on the road that the tires can't tread. The Vermont stops. Insects pelt them like green hail. Oof, that does not look fun. Grasshoppers, they're pretty sizely, so having something kind of fly at you like that must not be a fun time, although Bud seems to be enjoying himself. People drive for miles to see their fantastic machine. Lordy, Harold, you ever seen such a thing? Hey, Ma, a devil wagon. People sit in trees for a good view. A newspaper reports the Vermont whizzing through town non-stop at the breakneck speed of 40 miles per hour. That's no doubt an exaggeration, since a Winston's max was closer to 30. So I'll let you ask your parents how fast 30 or 40 miles an hour really is. It's not that fast. July 17th, Chicago, Illinois. Out of the small towns, a big-time city. Crowds gather around the Vermont. City officials shake the driver's hands. Reporters clamor about. Cameras flash. And so these are all questions that the reporters are trying to ask these gentlemen, and maybe Bud. What was your most exciting adventure? Did you think you'd make it this far? Smile. They spend the night in a real bed in a real hotel. Zzz. So Bud's already curled up and sleeping. Next morning, about to leave. Where's Bud? People everywhere, but no Bud. They search over and under. There, with the ladies in the fine hats, Bud, always the show-off, wondered where he'd get the most attention. As you can see, these ladies are definitely giving Bud all the attention he deserves. July 20th, Cleveland, Ohio. Winton Company, based in Cleveland, sees an opportunity for glory and holds a banquet in Jackson's honor. Tables piled high with food stretched before the hungry and tired travelers. After their meager pickings on their journey, they've gotten to feasting heaven. A Winton boss says to his workers, "Boys, wash their car and make it look respectable." Jackson refuses, saying, "I want mud from every state on this automobile." Huh? I like that. You can see they're feasting here, and Bud is definitely excited to have some food. July 21st, to Buffalo, New York. So they're almost there. The Vermont covers 200 miles in 2 days. They are so close to New York City that they push on straight through the night. The twinkling stars and the moon above seem to cheer them on. To the White House, President Teddy Roosevelt reads newspaper reporting their progress. July 21st, Peekskill, New York. A little before 5 o'clock in the morning, they make what will be their final tire repair by the lamplighter's soft glow. Jackson's wife Bertha arrives with friends and reporters. They hang a banner on the Vermont. First across the continent, San Francisco to New York. So it looks like they made it. July 26th, New York City. It's 4:30 in the morning. Jackson, Crocker, and Bud drive the Vermont down 5th Avenue. The car is covered with mud. Honk honk. 63 days, 12 hours, and 30 minutes. About 5,600 miles of what passed for roads. About 800 gallons of gas. $8,000 of Jackson's own money. All for a $50 bet that he never bothered to collect. So really, it wasn't about the bet. It was about making the journey. And you see these people maybe aren't so excited to see them as they would if it wasn't so early in the morning. And here's some pictures in the afterward. So here's Bud, who was a real dog, and he posed with the goggles, and you can see Jackson and Crocker with Bud in their car. Okay, so we have a few minutes, and I will show you just the very end and the map. So here is kind of the journey that they went through. A little similar to Alice's, but I think Alice didn't go quite up so much into Oregon. So 2 cross-country road trips in 2 weeks. I think we're a little exhausted, so we will probably stick to more local or not quite so long journeys in our next book. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.